Hey, it's Mazzy here. 60 years of the Kinks. 60 years of this one of the greatest bands from the United Kingdom ever, from North London. The Kinks, God save the Kinks. 60 years. This is a video, Kinks Kompilations. And of course, when you say Kinks and compilations, you have to spell compilations with a K. It's mandatory. Kinks are one of my top all-time 3 favorite bands ever, ever, ever. Going back 60 years. Of course, the Kinks from 1963 to 2023 when I'm recording this. The Kinks, I friggin' love the Kinks. I love almost everything about the Kinks. Even their theatrical era in the 1970s and RCA Records. I think Ray Davies is a genius. The Kinks of Ray Davies and Dave Davis and Mick Avery and, well, all the incarnations of the Kinks. Just amazing, amazing music. Didn't always click in terms of hit making, but Ray Davies is probably one of the greatest pop songwriters ever. Let me go back to 1964. Of course, those of you who watch me on occasion or many times know my love for the Beatles, and everything changed on that night on Sunday, February 9th, 1964 with the Ed Sullivan Show. Everything changed. But I remember, and of course I don't know the date. This is something I don't remember. My dad, Paul Leon Maslov, I remember the moment. We were in the house, and all of a sudden, because he knew I was into the Beatles, and that whole year with the introducing the Beatles, Meet the Beatles, Beatles' second album, Hard Day's Night, all incarnations and variations of Beatle records that came out that year, plus singles, and there were a lot. One day he came up to me. He goes, the Beatles are gonna probably not that be much popular anymore. Of course, he's telling this to 1964 to this 12-year-old, his son, stepson, Paul Maslov. Breaks my heart. He goes, there's a new band that apparently going to be bigger than the Beatles or more popular. I'm paraphrasing it because I don't remember exactly what he said, but I swear to God, I just remember him saying, they're called the Kinks. Now, of course, I didn't know, being a 12-year-old, all the word kink and kinks and just that whole thing. That's another hole to jump into, literally there, right? But he said that, and for some reason that stuck with me. And then of course, I heard "You Really Got Me" and Dave, da 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 da. That riff, the Kinks. Anyway, rock and roll, the Kinks. I fell in love with the Kinks. There's a whole story of the Kinks being banned in America from basically, 1965, 66 through 69. And that's because of this whole union problem they had. Gerfunkel, for what's the word? They had a not a great situation, and I think the Davis brothers got a little rambunctious with the studio crew, the union crews of the music union, and they got banned. They couldn't perform in America. And in some ways, there's a theory. The theory goes that it's kind of what made Ray write about British suburban life around, Muswell Hill, and the whole English, just the la-di-da Englishness of his songwriting was different than the Stones or the Beatles, anyone else, pretty much at that point. So, but I wanted to go through a bunch of comps like I did before. I did a video on Rolling Stones. Have they made more comps than anyone else? Of course, there's a lot of Beach Boys comps, and comps, I mean compilations. So I'm going to go through the comps I have in my collection, vinyl and CDs, and I'll tell you what I know about them, and there's probably maybe several missing that I don't have in my collection. And of course, someone's going to say, why do you need those compilations when they overlap songs? Well, those of you who are passionate about a band or a movie or a passionate about anything, you collect them all, you buy them all. And again, as I said, the Kinks are one of my top 3 bands. So, and I want to start out with this. We're in their 60th anniversary. I'm going to start out with the Kinks, The Journey Part 1. This came out on BMG, and I want to do a shout out and a thank you to Arnaldo, someone who's in the vinyl community. I'll put a link below to his channel, who is an employee of BMG. He reached out to me, sent me some records, including, he knows my love for the Kinks, and he sent me this. This is volume 1, The Journey. There are apparently going to be 2 volumes of this year, celebrating the Kinks' 60th anniversary. And it's one of, as far as I know, only 2 compilations ever put together by Ray Davies himself, or by Kinks. In this case, Mick Avery, Ray, and Dave Davis compile the songs for this. And of course, does the world need another Kinks compilation? Hey, if someone is new to music, this is kind of an interesting dive. What I like about this, it's divided into quads, 2 record set, and it'll be interesting to see what volume 2, what they put on volume 2. Will it be chronological, thematic? And they have these 4 sides divided up thematically, not just hits, some deep tracks. Side 1 is songs about becoming a man, the search of adventure, finding identity, and a girl. You really got me, all day, all the night. Who'll be the next in line? Tired, so tired of waiting for you. Stop Your Sobbing. A lot of people never heard that, didn't realize that, who didn't get into their albums, only got into their singles, didn't realize that maybe until Chrissie Hynde and the Pretenders covered that great song on, I believe it was the first Pretenders album in 1980. Then side 2 is songs of ambition achieved, the bitter taste of success, loss of friends, the past comes back and bites you in the back side. Now, strange maybe to some people. Is this getting a little pontificating on these thematic things, forcing it into a box? All the power to Ray. Dead End Street, School Days, Supersonic Rocket Ship. That it's a song I really love from the RCA years, from Everybody's in Showbiz. It was actually used in the Avengers or the Thor film, one of those films of the Marvel Universe. Do you remember Walter? Great pop song. Love that song. Side 3, Days and Nights of Last Soul, songs of regret and reflection of happier times. Too Much on My Mind. Beautiful song. Where Have All the Good Times Gone? Sitting in the Midday Sun. Just amazing writing. His lyric is the mundane life of like America in the suburbs, very much like what was happening in this the Britain of Ray and Dave Davis. And yes, it's Davis. They pronounce it Davis, not Davies. Everyone always comments when I say that. If I don't mention it, I get, chastised here. Side 4, A New Start, A New Love. But have you really changed? Still haunted by the quest and the girl. Who came up with these? Probably Ray. And the opening track from 1967 on side 4 is probably the greatest song, the greatest single by the Kinks, Waterloo Sunset. How many versions do I have of that? No More Looking Back, that's the Arista years. Great song with a great guitar riff, very Santana-like of Dave Davis. This is one of 2 albums. There's a picture of them at Muswell Hill, from the Muswell Hillbilly RCA years. Cross-section BMG Records. This is going to be a great year for the Kinks. You don't have any records by the Kinks? This could be a good introduction, possibly. But I'm going to go through these comps, because I think it's just fun. Too many comps. Do you need them all? No, you don't need them all, but here we go. I'm going to start with this. I love this just because of the cover. This was, the second album that came out in America. Now, in America, they were on Pi in the UK, Reprise initially in America, and the records didn't jive with each other, very much like the Beatles and the Stones, and these early UK groups, they didn't jive with the American counterparts, and Kink Size is essentially a comp. I mean, maybe I'm stretching it for this one, but you have the whole about the Kinks, you know, when they were born, how tall are they, all that kind of chazarai, as as they say, about this. And so tired of waiting for you. One of the great songs. This is basically an American version of things from their EPs and singles. Now, the Kinks were a band that did a lot of singles in the UK that weren't necessarily on albums, and in America, the songs were on albums. So they would put together these comps, and this is one of them. So this is Kink Size, All Day and All Night. Tired of waiting for you. Of course, early was this 64 or 5, 65 maybe. Kinks already had a greatest hits because they had so many great singles. This is a wonderful copy in shrink. And look at this. This is the Tugboat label. That's the label, if you can get this. But I have another copy, but this is a mono in shrink copy. Oh my God, this is friggin' great. Of course, Dedicated Flower of Fashion, Tired of Waiting, All Day, All the Night, Well-Respected Men, Who'll Be the Next in Line, Till the End of the Day and the Night, Set Me Free, Little Girl. God, what a great, this is a greatest hits album early on Reprise Records, American only in this case. Then we're going to move on. Now, this is interesting. They're on at Reprise Records. This was a radio station only, like a sampler. In '69, finally, they get their, they get allowed back in America, and they start touring back and doing the circuits. Did the, I believe, the Fillmore. But the Kinks are back. They're back in America, and they kind of lost, even though their records were being played. Arthur and what is it? Victoria was a hit. They weren't at the top of the charts like the Stones and the Beatles and everything. This is a radio station only copy called God Save the Kinks. That was a promotion done. I'm not sure if that was a worldwide thing or just in this country. And what it's interesting about this, it starts out with a melody, a rock and roll melody. Then it goes into Well-Respected Man, Dedicated Flower, Dandy, a song that was, I first heard that actually covered by Herman's Hermits, and Sunny Afternoon. And then David Watts, Death of a Clown, Village Green, Big Sky, Days, Waterloo Sunset. So this is an interesting artifact. Some of the songs are edited, not the whole songs, but it's kind of it become a bit of a collector's item. And this is the Kinks, Then, Now, and In Between, a promotional radio station only comp. This was a special record to me. This is the Great Lost Kinks album. Again, the Kinks finally left Reprise Records in the States and were signed to RCA Records. And RCA, would put out Muswell Hillbillies and Everybody's Showbiz. But they had some, Warner Brothers, basically Reprise Records, had rights to some of the things. And this is really an interesting comp that has a lot of singles and cuts and alternate and outtakes that were never really on records. Of course, the one song that became sort of a cult song is When I Turn Off the Living Room Lights. Who cares if you're Jewish and your breath smells like garlic? Da, 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 da. I mean, totally off. Come on, Ray. What do you think of when you wrote that song? It's a hysterical song, though. My buddy Larry and I just kept playing the song. This is a fantastic comp. But the one, to me, every time I do talk to people about comps that I really like that aren't just the hits but go deep, and this is one of my very favorites, and this is the Kinks Chronicles. They did put out a record straight version a few years ago, and I don't think the sound was very good. So if you're into this record, find an original copy. Not sonic masterpieces to begin with, but great songs. Victoria from Arthur, Village Green, Holiday in Waikiki, Waterloo Sunset, David Watts, Autumn Almanac. What a great song. I'm just going to go on and on because I love this. 8 Man, of course. Is Lola on here? Lola is on here. That was a song too, obviously, from Lola and the Power Man. Mr. Pleasant. This is a really great, this is their kind of, that later period of the Kinks that's really about, the mundane British suburban life in the British Empire, and fantastic. One of my favorite comps of any artist. I mean, I keep thinking of comps that go deep, that go beyond just the greatest hits. This is one of them. Same with Weird Songs in the Gold Mine, the Doors comp, fantastic. Has a couple of hits, but it goes deeper album tracks. Now, I said before that new comp on BMG was the only one of two comps actually curated by the artists Ray and Dave and Mick Avery, and not just the label or the suits or the people at the recording company. This was one put out in the UK only, and this is kind of referred to as the Black Album. This is called the Kinks. This is a mono on Pi Records. A reissue of this came in the mono box, the Kinks mono box, from about 5-6 years ago. And again, this has, some of the songs that are on Kinks Chronicles, some of their hits. Has Animal Farm, which is an amazing song based on the George Orwell book. Death of a Clown, of course, the Dave Davis song. Just a great. A lot of overlap amongst those. You don't need all this, but this is kind of a rare album, so this goes for some money. I found a copy in a collection I acquired recently, and this is the mono version. Again, there also comes in the mono box. Just some things I'll go through real fast. In the 70s, in America, Pi would be putting these comps out. This is like 1975 comp. Nothing special, sort of a greatest hits, the Pi years. Again, this is the pre-RCA years, this comp. Another one in the UK, there was a label called Golden Hour, the Golden Hour of the Kinks. There was a Golden Hour of Donovan. There's basically almost an hour of music, 10 songs on each side. A long record, which isn't always suggested. But this is kind of a nice overview, again, of that later period, opening up with Days, again, Waterloo Sunset, that later period of the poppy English kind of suburban life of Ray Davis and the rest of the band. This is a cool comp, pick it up. It's usually fairly inexpensive, 60 minutes of entertainment. There's a series of these, I think there are 5, 6, 7 of different bands called Golden Hour. I like the Donovan one quite a bit. This one you don't see a lot. This was put out by RCA in 1980. Not a great, this actually sounds really good, this pink cover. Second time around, the Kinks. And this has songs from the Kinks present, Schoolboys in Disgrace, the Kinks present, Schoolboys in Disgrace, Everybody's in Showbiz, Soap Opera, Cellular Heroes. So this is sort of a comp of, not necessarily hits, but songs from the RCA years. Kind of a strange one this is. And again, this is when I found it. I probably wouldn't have bought this normally, but I found it in a collection I acquired as well. Now, I quite like this, and this was during the CD era. This came out. This came out in 1986, I believe, from the Arista years, depending on your point of view. They had a really resurgence. They became, again, somewhat of a stadium band after the RCA theatrical years. Again, I like those years, but with Sleepwalker and that era, from then on, with the Kinks and Arista, they did some interesting things and some great hit singles. Now, there's some live tracks on here from the live album, but it's also got Rock and Roll Fantasy. It's a great song. Come Dancin', which was a pretty big hit on MTV. Sleepwalker again, a live Lola, Low Budget, which initially wasn't one of my favorites, but I've grown to love it again. Misfits. That album is one of my all-time favorite of the Arista years. I love, especially side one of Misfits, and that's on here. And of course, the great single, they did a Christmas single called Father Christmas. And so this is a cool comp. Again, this was a CD, so a lot of people at this point were kind of jumping the compact disc bandwagon, but I quite like that. Several years ago, when all the merging of the record companies, RCA and everybody merged, and getting rights to songs, different labels is very, very confusing. But this came out. When did this one come out? This one came out in 2016, around the time I think of the Monobox, maybe just before that. And this is side one. All the tracks are mastered in mono in 2014. Side two, all the tracks in stereo. And again, the early hits on side one, the usual the usual songs. There's a track list. You can do a screen grab of that if you like. And side two, of course, Waterloo Sons of Victoria, the album version of Lola. Now remember, in Lola, and I always get confused which one. In the UK, they had to change the lyrics because he says cola, Ciole cola, Coca-Cola. They had to change it to cherry cola. There's a whole thing about marketing. But this has their own Kinks labels, little custom labels there. You'll see. And I don't know about this, but yeah, this is cut by Kevin Gray. So this is a fun comp too. And then this was a Record Store Day, an EP comp. Not essential at all, but this is Waterloo Sunset, an EP in mono, 45 RPM. So it is unique. Again, there are definitely EPs and 45s, and this is basically a 12-inch EP on 45 RPM. Now, quickly going through on the 60th anniversary of the Kinks, some of their comps. This was a Rhino Greatest Hits. Rhino, early on or in the mid-periods, and this is in the 80s, during the CD era, was really good at doing a lot of British rock stuff. Kinks were all over Rhino, a part of that. This is a Cellular Heroes. This is a RCA comp. This is really good, and you could probably pick this up cheap because it has 20th Century Man, Muscle Hillbillies, Complicated Life, Alcohol. It's the Carnegie Hall live version of that. Cellular Heroes, Here Comes Another Day, No More Looking Back Again, other songs too. But this is kind of a cool comp. I got a promo of this one from a friend who's distributing this music, but it's a nice one. This is a bizarre one. This might have been, was this a promo, limited edition compilation, music from the third set of Velvel record reissues. Now, Velvel reissued a lot, most of the mid-late Kinks catalog, and this is a comp of these records from Low Budget, the live album, Give the People What They Want, State of Confusion, and Word of Mouth. Not my favorites, but this is almost like an EP. This is 10 tracks. Kind of a weird thing. I got this again as a promo, but it's interesting to show here. Now this, okay, if you're a CD person and you just want the hits plus, this is that essential series that Arista, in this case, part of RCA Sony put out, and they did a series of these essential. Everything is confusing now with the different labels, who owns what, but you can find this probably fairly inexpensive. 2 CDs, the essential series on compact disc of any artist are great, and they've been so many artists on this, but this gives you pretty much all the hits. I like, with the Kinks, the deep cuts. And this is interesting. This is the Kinks Singles Collection, and what I love about this, it has 25 songs on the Singles Collection on the first CD. The second CD is Waterloo Sunset, some unreleased versions by Ray Davis, and it's kind of a cool collection. Return to Waterloo, Voice in the Dark, Cellular Heroes, different versions, different kind of solo versions. The Kinks did a series of things. I could have shown Back to the Bone. That's a live thing. That's at Conk Studios with the Kinks. And lastly, I'm going to close out. If you are a compact disc person and you have no Kinks and you want to spend a little money, don't know if it's still in print or how expensive it is, this was curated and produced by Andrew Sandoval, the great person. Did a lot of stuff for Rhino Records, a lot of box sets during the CD era. He's the one that wrote a book, literally the definitive book on the Monkees. This is a fantastic set. This is 5 CDs, has all the hits, outtakes, alternate versions, a booklet. This is amazing. This is the Kinks, the anthology, 1974 to 71. So this is like mostly the Pie era and the Reprise era. You don't really go into the RCA era. You don't get into the Arista years, but this is fantastic. So anyway, that is 60 years, the 60th anniversary of the Kinks. One of my top 3 favorite bands, along with the Beatles and the Byrds and the friggin' Kinks. God save the Kinks. Ray, Dave, I mean, come on, this band rocks, and they're so creative, and even their, what some would call their minor songs, are fantastic as far as I'm concerned. Anyway, thanks for watching. Let me know your favorite Kinks things. Subscribe, all the funny things, fun things, not funny things. And Ray, I mean, brothers, how tempestuous is that? Ray and Dave, the Kinks, the Davis brothers. Thanks for watching again. Mazzy loves you. See you next time.